So what are you guys?
We are the Swartwood family.
So are you guys real Swartwood MCAT students?
Hell yeah!
Hey guys, this is the very first video lecture in this series, and it's going to be pretty much super mellow. Okay? In fact, so mellow we're really not going to do that many problems. It's more a conceptual setup. Okay, but let's at least get started. The first thing I want to look at is something called measures of central tendency. Probably misspelled tendency, but that's okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So the idea is I got a bunch of numbers. I want to look at them, right? And I want to have a feel for like what's the middle number, right? Something really effectively a sense of an average. Not super formal, but just an idea of what is the average, sort of the middle number. Okay? And I know it's cheesy, but we could start off this way. Let's just take a bunch of numbers like this. Okay. So what's one way to figure out of this list of numbers, who's kind of the most typical number, right? So one way we could do it is something called the mode. Very mellow, makes a lot of sense, right? You got a bunch of ones, a bunch of twos, a bunch of threes, and the setup is who do you see the most often? And everybody agree, it's pretty obvious, 2 you see more than 3 or 1, right? So the mode here has got to be 2. So that's it. So this is the guy most often seen. Again, just keeping it very informal, very mellow. The second thing I want to look at, so there's another way to do it. Why don't we just literally find the middle number? In this case, it's not going to be any different from the mode, but the procedure is going to be a little different, like the way of looking at it. So you line up all the guys, right? You look at the biggest guy and the smallest guy, and you take them out. And the next biggest and next smallest, and you keep working your way down. Here, here, now I'm kind of over here. Now, depending on your prof, they might have a different, slant at this, but most profs, when you have two guys and they're both lined up for that middle number, they like to average. The average of 2 and 2 is obviously 2, right? So here the median, that's going to be 2, okay? So let me reiterate that in case that wasn't clear. The median is literally the middle number. So if you had a list of numbers, let's say like 1, 2, I don't know, 10, then say 10,000, and let's say 1,000,000. Everybody agree? You take the highest number, so 1,000,000, you match it with the lowest number, take it out. Then the next lowest and the next highest, take it out, and you can see the middle number here is 10, right? So you line up all the scores, the middle score is your median. Okay, and again, everybody's a little different, but a lot of profs adopt a convention that if you have two guys that qualify as a middle number, let's say our list look like this, 1, 5, 5, 10. The highest and the lowest go out. These two guys tie. Then they would average these two. And of course, if this were something like this, 4 and 6, the median would be considered 5. Okay, no big deal. Then the final one is really what most people think of when they think of average. It really is the average. We'll call that the guy, the mean. Okay, okay, so how do I get a feel for the mean? Here, your gut will pretty much tell you. It looks like the average number is a 2. But let's find a more systematic way of doing it. Okay, so, well, how do you get an average? Like, how do you average the numbers, say 1, 5, and 10? Most of you know this from reflex or from practice. It's going to be you add the numbers up, and you divide by the total number. Okay? In this case, I didn't pick pretty numbers, but that would be like, what, 16 over 3. Okay, that makes sense. You give everybody their due share, you divide by the count, and you figure out what the average of these guys is. Okay, so I'm going to take it for granted that you feel relatively comfortable with this. So let's get a general procedure for it. Let's let, for example, it's funny notation, but let's let this guy be a score. So for example, let's say I had 3 scores, 1, 5, and 10, like we just had. I'll call this first score x1, I'll call this second score x2, and I'll call this third score x3. Everybody okay with this? Okay. So what would be the general formula? Well, you know what to do. You add them up. So if you add them up, it would literally be x1 plus x2 plus x3, the 3 scores, right? And then what would you do after that? You would divide by the number. Is everybody okay with this? Okay. So no big deal. Okay. By the way, we're not trying to do anything formal, no formal probability, nothing like that, just keeping it very mellow. So I think one way is adding up, the general term is sum. So what you're going to do is you're going to take every one of these scores and you're going to add them up. That makes sense. So you take every single score, you add it up, and then apparently you divide by the number. Okay? And this is a way of getting our average, or the mean.